The less questioning I did about myself as to who I was, the more comfortable I felt. So now I have absolutely no knowledge of who I am, but I'm extremely happy.
You have a very good heart.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Broward Exchange. I am your co-host Nick, and joins me my co-host Lewis.
What's up?
And today we are doing another album roundabout, as we usually do. It's like book club, but with music, and you have to listen to it over and over again. And
Until you hate
the
it.
people you live with, yeah. And then we hate it, and then we go on here, and then we're just like, this album fucking sucks. It's terrible. Like it just keeps going, like. Ugh.
No. Okay.
First two episodes, we accidentally had themes of similar locations, and for this one, our theme is that they are completely different from each other, yet American.
American 90s.
American 90s albums. But today we are reviewing, I guess, Aquemini by Outkast, which is the album I have brought today. And Lewis has brought, what'd you bring, Lewis?
I brought Megadeth's Rust in Peace, not Hangar 18.
Yes.
And yes.
So Lewis, what, you want me to go first? I can go first.
You can go
Let the
first.
guy go first. All right. So Outkast is Aquemini. Lewis, what was your impression of this album?
This album, first of all, was really groovy. That should be obvious, but also really dreamlike. And I was honestly really impressed because I understood this album to be sort of a bridge in which hip hop stops becoming like an underground thing and starts just being pop mainstream, to the point that it surpasses the pop mainstream of rock music, of soul music, of gospel music, and electronic music. I don't think electronic music ever made the like full pop breakthrough.
Oh, it
You know?
did in the 2010s. When
Like
you had like
who?
Avicii. You know?
True, but that didn't have the staying power. Like now, people identify what pop is with like what hip hop is.
You're saying when it like pop, yeah, when pop became like a hip hop dominated kind of thing. And I really do think, I don't know if it's Aquemini, but definitely Speaker Box, La Love Below, and Stankonia. Those Outkast albums, I feel like they are the ones that ushered the 2000s like pop hip hop kind of thing. And you later had Kanye, and you had Ludacris, and you had all those people.
Mhm.
In fact, I was joking to myself when reviewing this album that Outkast pulled a Talking Heads, which is where their really big critically acclaimed albums are their early ones, but then their later albums are the pop hits. I don't know if you want to call that a Talking Heads, if they're the earliest ones to do that.
I'm not sure. Because Talking Heads, I always think like just stayed not well. Okay, it is a nationally. It is like a household name or a semi-household name in the same way Outkast is. But yeah, no, it's just
Because Talking Heads, you got Remain in Light, and that's like the coup de grace, amazing. And they also have like Fear of Music is really good too. And those albums are kind of weird. And then later they had Burning Down the House, Naive Melody, Little People, that most people know which is like the poppier songs. You know what I mean?
Okay, I can see your point where like the breakthroughs happened earlier, and now this is like more pop influenced writing. It's much more of a victory lap.
Yeah,
It's almost like they get the notoriety before they start pulling out the pop hits instead of doing the pop hits in order to gain notoriety.
Yeah, and then making the
the
Now that they have
experimental
a
album.
platform, yeah,
Yeah.
experimental album.
Um. Yeah. No. Outkast just kept on cultivating a pop image more and more throughout their career. I'm not sure if I dig like they do it well, but I'm not sure if I dig it for most artists. Just because most artists, I'm like, you finally have racehorses to do really weird, crazy shit, and they don't really like hone it in as well. Talking Heads and Outkast are exceptions to that rule.
Yeah,
Um, but I don't know, someone like Kid Cudi,
the,
someone like
yeah.
Chance.
I would say is yes in the non-exceptions.
Oh, I guess so. Yeah, because
Yeah,
well, but that's only because well, what's different with bands as opposed to like small collections of artists is that
yeah,
that was mostly lineup changes. So like when everyone leaves,
yeah, yeah.
but the guitarist,
Yeah,
like he doesn't know what to do. He's like, all right, let's make a really simple song.
yeah, and that's how you get
Yeah,
Vulnerable Lonely Heart.
exactly.
Yeah, but all right, back to Aquemini. I would like to set the stage of where Outkast is
Hmm.
in the context of 90s hip hop. So it's the 1995 Source Reward Show. And at the time, 95, there's, the big beefs between the East Coast and the West Coast. You had Biggie beefing with Tupac, Suge Knight beefing with a bunch of people. That was really like the center of the conversation for hip hop at the time, right?
Hmm.
And who goes on to win the 1995 Source Award show? Outkast. Out of nowhere, Outkast wins it for their first album, Southern Playalistic Cadillac Music.
Hmm.
And when they're going on to get the reward, they're getting booed by everybody. Because at this time, the Outkast is from the South. They're from Savannah, Georgia.
Hmm.
And as the name implies, they are outcasts. They already knew that they were going to be kind of outcasts. That's why they named the band that.
Yeah.
So they go and take the reward. Everyone's booing them. And Andre 3000 very famously says, he holds the reward up and he says, "The South got something to say." And he walks out. So
Okay.
that was from their first album.
Hmm.
And their first album was was more of like a gangsta kind of album. They were doing some psychedelic stuff that you would see later. But it was still very much imbued in that gangsta persona that hip hop
Hmm.
kind of had to have. If you were gonna go and be a popular hip hop artist, you had to kind of play this like character of being a gangster.
And when do you think that really changed for hip hop artists? Was it with Outkast?
I think Outkast was really the first ones to just say nah. First popular ones, because there's like MF Doom, but he was always underground at this point. And there's
Yeah.
other underground acts like Deltron 3000 that didn't care, but they were underground. Outkast was popular,
Hmm.
and there was the ones that did it in the mainstream.
Okay.
At least I would say. But so after that, Outkast they decided to like completely switch the game up. They didn't want to make they didn't want to make gangster music. They wanted to make their own stuff.
Hmm.
So one day, Andre 3000 shows up to the studio in a turban and like this crazy outfit. And he has quit drugs. He's
Hold up. I
quit
don't know what a
alcohol.
turban looks like. Give me 2 seconds.
Like the thing that like
Oh.
Sikhs who wear. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
and like
Okay.
this outfit. And they're like, Big Boy is like, what are you doing? And he has decided to quit weed, quit alcohol, and he's gone vegan, and he made a vow of celibacy for 1 year.
Okay.
And then from that point of view, they go on to make AT Aliens, which I don't know. Did you listen to AT Aliens?
I did listen to AT Aliens.
And
Yes.
AT Aliens is where they really start going psychedelic and where they start really like experimenting with their sound.
Yes.
And I want to talk about some of the things that make Outkast. One, they don't rap about the typical gay stuff, bitches, money, drugs, violence. They don't rap about that. In fact, they rap about not doing that and to hold yourself the better, right? They're not gangsters. I mean, Big Boy, that's kind of the dynamic between them. Like Big Boy is kind of like because he grew up very poor and with a big household, so he kind of has the like you know what happens when you're the big brother in a poor household. He's like the leader. He's kind of a thug. He has that dynamic to him. But
Hmm.
Andre 3000, he also grew up in a poor household, but he went to private school because his mom worked really hard to get him into a private school, and there they like cultivated a lot of his eccentric beliefs, eccentric stuff, and he became more of like
Hmm.
an artist growing up. And he was, yeah, he would like smoke weed and do like hooligan stuff, but he was never really like a thug. He was never like gang banging people.
He was an art kid,
Yeah, he was an art
essentially.
kid,
Okay.
essentially. But in
And
high
what?
school, wait, go ahead.
Oh no, what type of private school? Like Catholic or?
I'm not sure. It was just where the rich would go.
Ah,
I
okay.
knew he had to wear like little suits. I saw some pictures of him in middle school wearing little suits. It was only in middle school. In high school, that's where he met Big Boy.
Ah, okay.
And he went back to a normal high school and met Big Boy, and they started rapping when they were 16 and 17, and they
Hmm.
actually got signed at 18. So the Andre 3000 you're hearing in Southern Playalistic is 18 years old.
Oh wow.
In
And
Eight
what?
Scalions, he would be 21, and I think
Okay.
in or 20, and I think in Aquemini he would be 23, which is pretty
Yeah.
insane. Yeah, pretty insane.
And that, what type of like hip hop are these guys listening to? Coming in
Um,
because this is like what 90s,
oh, I guess we could play the
91,
game.
92.
Yeah, let's play the game, Lewis. Let's do. What do you think they're influenced by?
Well, there's for me what I got a lot out of Aquemini, and mostly because I don't know hip hop, especially early hip hop. I got a lot of Southern soul. There
Yes.
was a lot of movements that remind me of Earth, Wind, and Fire. A lot of stuff
Yep.
that even remind me of Al Green. There's even some stuff. There's okay. First of all, like I feel like this should go unsaid, but I know there's plenty of people that listen to hip hop that don't listen to other forms of African American music, but Funkadelic has their signature all over this thing. Parliament got their
Dude,
signature all over this thing, bro.
George Clinton's on the album.
George
You
Clinton is
know,
on the goddamn album. Yeah.
you know, if you've made something truly funky, George Clinton comes down from the sky and he
Yeah.
blesses your album. That's when you know you've done it.
And there's there even the inflection that Andre has is almost to a T exactly like the narrator for um Mothership Connection. I'm not sure if you ever listened to Parliament, that
I know what you're
album.
talking about. Certain songs, especially where it's more like Spotty Oddie, where it's
Yeah.
more like spoken word than it is like rap.
Hmm.
I know what you're talking about. The narrator.
Yeah. Um, outside of that, I hip hop wise, outside of like something like Grandmaster Flash, I really can't tell.
For hip hop, um, a lot of them were influenced by just earlier hip hop. For example, Big Boy was influenced by like Two Live Crew, which was a sort of an old school kind of hip hop stuff. Big Boy, I actually have a whole list of all of their influences, and I was gonna say that if you got them all, Lewis, I will shave my head because from all of the musicians we've done so far, Outkast has been the most open about like the behind the scenes kind of talk. Like I
Okay.
found so much stuff about them. So since Big Boy was raised in a poor household, it's kind of the situation where it's like, what do we listen to? Whatever records we got, and you would just listen to it over and over and over again. So Big Boy was influenced by James Brown, right?
Yeah.
Bob Marley,
Okay.
and a lot of soul for Big Boy. And for hip hop, it was like smaller, like old school Grandmaster Flash kind of stuff, like Two Live Crew and whatnot.
Hmm.
But really, I mean, they were started so young that it's almost like they're just like born into hip hop. Like this is like the truest. There's not too many influences you can have when you start rapping at 17. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
and you're probably not thinking consciously like, oh, I better study up on this guy or that guy in
Mhm.
order to get that sound. You're just
Yeah,
like, this is what me and my friends listen to.
yeah. It's just and you just build from there. It's
Yeah.
like a new seed. So for Andre 3000, those are big boys' influences. For Andre 3000, we got Parliament Funkadelic. You got that. Sly Stone.
Sly Stone.
All
That was it.
funk.
Yeah.
Psychedelic funk is a
Right.
huge influence. Jimi Hendrix,
That makes perfect sense.
and which is why he plays him in the movie later. You know,
Do
you're not gonna get this. Wait, go ahead.
No, go for it. All right.
Kurt Cobain and Rage Against the Machine for Andre.
I can see the Kurt, but I'm not saying that because of Outkast's music. I'm saying it because of Outkast's era. Or it's like you're making pop music in '94, you're listening to Nirvana. Like that's what it is.
What Andre 3000 said was he really loved the sense of urgency that Nirvana and Rage Against the Machine had, and he was always trying to like replicate that sense in his music.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. For when it comes to hip hop, he liked Rakim from Eric B and Rakim, and the reason why he said was before that, a lot of the hip hop was like a rhythmic attack, the lyrical, like that kind of stuff. But Rakim showed him that you can rap and it can be more mellow and it can be more like fluid and soulful in a way. There's different types of flows that you can do.
There's a lot of '90s rappers that say this specifically about Rakim. I know Eminem said very much the same thing, where Rakim was the first dude who started doing serious storytelling and not rapping about rapping. Yeah. And at the same time, also having rhyme schemes that that don't follow either the rhythm of the beat or a syncopation of the rhythm of the beat. Yeah. But kind of move all over the place. And it was like the first time where he had to sit down and with the lyrics and actually try to like figure out the rhyme schemes, because everything else was like A B B C C, like it's really simple rhyme poetry.
Yeah, Rakim really like evolved that to show what you can do with it. And I think a lot of rappers, especially Andre 3000, took from that. And then the last influence that you'll never get, while I was so confident to shave my head, was Kraftwerk.
What?
Yeah.
What?
Wait, hold on. I actually have. Let me whip up like the quote.
That makes no sense to me, but that's fine. That's fine because Dave Mustaine. Once we get to Megadeth, bro, it's gonna be similar.
Let me read the quote, and I think you'll get it. I heard Kraftwerk when I was young, but it was only years later that I realized how they have been the main influence on hip-hop. Africa Bambaata's Planet Rock is a riff-off from Kraftwerk, and that's a seminal hip-hop record. They use all electronic sounds, no guitars, no live drums, and they sounded like the future. They would take apart drum machines and rebuild themselves to create new beats, and what I really like about electronic music is that you can rock through them and nobody knows what you look like.
He's onto something.
He's onto something, because it's like hip-hop does have that like no live, just samples. It's all like built for you kind of music.
Yeah, and it gives it it makes hip hop conceptual albums really interesting for me, because when I put on like a hip hop album, I have no idea what it's gonna sound like. While if I do it for a band, it's like, okay, you know, they might go in a crazy weird direction, but the way Jimmy plays guitar is the way Jimmy plays guitar. That's not going to change anytime soon. Yeah,
because you might have something like a Madlib album where it's just this super eclectic thing of samples and it's everywhere, but it comes together rhythmically and whatnot. Or you might have something like this album, which guess what? Outkast doesn't like the sample, and most of this album's instrumentation. Did you know that?
God bless. I did notice that, because there's so many effects that you can only do if the tracks are isolated.
Yep.
Now, because we're in 2024, isolating tracks is not the worst thing in the world, because we have very fine tuning of frequencies in DAWs. But before, it used to be a thing of like you have to sit there with a slider until it sounds like you only have the snare in there and none of the ride. And I can imagine how fucking grueling of a task that must have been back in the day. And there's a lot of effects on here that I listen to that Yeah, no, it's like there's no way they isolated this shit from a vinyl onto tape and then put effects on it in a way that doesn't immediately bring up the frequencies they cut out. So they're
Yeah.
really smart in doing that, especially if they want to do dub stuff, which I heard a lot of on this record. So yeah, no, it's
Yeah.
fantastic.
There was almost 100 artists who were credited on working on this because there was just a ton of studio musicians
Jeez.
on all of Outkast. They don't. So I wanted to get your opinion because we've talked about hip hop before, and we've talked about how one of the beautiful things about it is the sampling because there's an essence of like bringing the dead back to speak through. In fact, there was the Tupac quote that's at the end of To Pimp a Butterfly where it's like we're not even rapping, we're just letting the dead sing through us. And
The
that's something
meta-ness
that
of that being sampled is crazy, by the way.
yeah. 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 But Big Boy has said the reason why they don't like the sample is they do believe the dead should rest. Like that's literally the phrasing he said. And we want to just make our own instrumentation and that they were really inspired by the way rock and jazz music is made by long jam sessions
Hmm.
and how the instrumentation comes from that. And that's sort of the way that they produced Aquemini.
And so,
It's very different from the rest of hip hop.
okay, but that does lead to a lot of interesting ideas of like how they build rhythm, because they can now work with like whoever they're working with, to sort of like more mold it to how their expectations. Because hip hop is very much like here's the beat, you have this to work with,
Yeah.
and because it's sampled from a record from '73 or whatever, and the drummer decided to play it that way, and you can't be like, okay, but can you do like a quick fill this style or change it up? No, no, unless you have a great producer with you that's willing to work with you all the way. But the vast majority of hip hop artists are just buying beats
Yeah.
or hiring producers and then just molding their vision to what the producer did.
Yeah.
So yeah, it speaks probably a lot about how independent they want to be. I think a lot of hip hop is controlled by the fact that like people by the people who make the beats, not so much the rappers themselves.
Yeah. And I want to give a round of applause to Organized Noise, who are the producers for Outkast, and they've been the producers for Outkast their entire career. And they're
Hmm.
also like the premier Southern hip hop producers. And in fact, when Big Boy and Andre 3000 were 16, 17 in hip hop in high school, they met the guys from Organized Noise. It's a hip hop trio. It's a producer
Hmm.
trio, and they really liked how Andre 3000 and Big Boy were rapping. So they're like, let's come to the dungeon, and the dungeon is his mom's basement. And
Yeah,
then they started working on stuff there, but that's where the name Dungeon Family comes from. And Dungeon Family is sort of a collective of a bunch of Southern hip hop rappers and producers. If you
hmm,
want more like stuff like Outkast, there's that. But I want to so because that they can do a lot of their own instrumentation, I want to talk about like there are so many little musical styles from all over.
hmm,
A lot of black culture within this album. In Rosa Parks, you had like that bridge that was like bluegrass.
yeah,
In yeah, in Synthesizer, you funk. Synthesizer is the one with George Clinton, so it's just a funk song.
hmm,
Liberation, you had like the Southern Soul because you have CeeLo Green and you had Erica Badu on it, and it's a
yeah.
very like kind of gospely soul song. Spotty has like a marching band, like a high school marching band in it, which
That
just in my head.
I that's probably my favorite song on the album. The horn section on there is so reminiscent of like good late '70s funk. It's
Yeah.
fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah, and also it has like spoken word, like you were saying with the narrator, where it's
Oh
not
yeah, yeah,
quite rapping, it's just them talking, and it's very like ethereal in a way.
yeah. It's mixing like that funk with the dub, bro. It's so good.
Yeah, and then Y'all Scared has like guitars, like rock guitars in it.
Hmm.
Yeah,
And I don't know. Is would you fit Mamacita in one of these musical styles?
That one's like that one's more like one of the more gangsta kind of gangsta songs on it. 'Cause
Yeah,
there's a few songs where they are, and some of it's ironic, like "Return of the Gangster."
Return of Gangster,
Uh,
of course.
where that song is supposed to be like them mocking the fact that at the time Andre 3000 would go to shows and dress like crazy,
Yeah,
and they all had this people had this perception because at the time you really needed to be that gangster persona, and if you weren't, they thought you were weird, and they thought Andre 3000 was like either on drugs or he was gay or he was in a cult or something.
yeah,
And Return of the Gangster is supposed to be like a joke where it's like, oh, here's our next album, we're gangster again, and that's why it's like Return of the Gangsta.
yeah.
Yeah, but really it's there to mock these perceptions of them and
Okay.
to sort of justify Andre 3000, where he's just saying like, I'm just a normal dude, I'm just expressive. I'm not trying to be I'm not trying to be someone I'm not. And that was a
Hmm.
big reason why they went away from the gangster music of the first album, was because they didn't think they were really that gangster, so they're just not gonna lie.
Yeah, at that point, because you're describing like high school kids, it's like two high school kids LARPing as gangsters,
Yeah,
essentially.
they're not.
And
And
I'm sure,
even their first album
yeah,
was really like, yeah, there was some like, it sounded gangsta, but there was like a lot of critiquing of the whole gangsta stuff, and it was very critical of the whole idea of it.
yeah.
Like they were making fun of it.
And then in this album, they're making fun of people who don't like what they're doing. People who reject them too easily just because of like this shit weird, man. This shit's
Yeah.
not good. Can I return this? Like on the album. Um, I want to be. Now that you brought up Return of the G, there's this song that comes on right before. Hold on, be
Yeah.
strong.
Yeah.
It's just sung. It's really short, and it doesn't seem to connect with the musical ideas afterwards. I was wondering what you make of that song.
I forgot the complete origin, but it was the person who's singing it. It was his song, and
Okay.
it was actually like a whole 4 minute song, and it had a whole thing to it. But Andre 3000 heard it, and he really wanted it just basically just the opening of that song to be the opening of the album, and the original singer agreed to it. And I don't know. I feel like AT Aliens also starts with like this mellow kind of psychedelic intro. I think it's called "You May Die,"
Yeah.
and so does this album. And I think it's just the way to set the mood. It's just like it's like soulful. It's almost like you're going
Okay.
into a dream. You're just like you're floating
Yes.
into Aquemini land.
Yeah.
So what would you say? What was like your highlights of the album?
My highlights of the album. I honestly, first of all, George Clinton appearing on Synthesizer, fantastic.
Yeah,
Was beautiful. I loved the sound of that. Spotty Adi, of course. The art of storytelling part two, when the distortion comes in with the vocals. I think that might have been as far as I can tell, uh, given my knowledge of early hip hop, the first time a hip hop artist like did that, like really like purposely. I'm sure there's like some
it was
really
very.
badly.
It's
What's
like a rock thing. The filter. It
yeah,
almost has
and
like King Crimson in a way. It's like
yeah, and I remember King Crimson got a lot of shit for doing that back all the way back in the '60s. That was a major line of disagreement between Robert Fripp and the rest of the band.
yeah.
Um, and no, yeah, that okay for me. Like when I listened to that, it became really clear to me that in a lot of ways, Andre 3000 is thinking of his vocals not so much as let me get words out, let me
Yeah.
storytell, but as an instrument. Once again, like everything about this album, I feel like is propelling hip hop to take on more quote unquote musical elements.
This is like prog hip hop.
It is, I guess. I mean, he's got long ass songs. I always think of like someone like Kendrick is prog hip hop because there's like different song sections. So I guess
like prog rock is blending other stuff like jazz into rock, and then this album is blending like rock into hip hop
yes.
and other stuff.
But even okay, you were talking about the sample thing, right? It's like even then, like it's like okay, like people tell us that hip hop isn't real because it's all samples. Well, we have instruments now. Hip hop isn't real because it doesn't have melodies. It has catchy choruses now. It's got horn lines now. We got JoJo Mordaire on the fucking beat, and like it's really like it's almost like the establishment of no, hip hop is real and it's musical and it's today's expression of African American music, as opposed to just some trend that people get into because as I don't know, have you ever seen like the interview of Jerry Garcia talk about hip hop?
No.
It's pretty notorious because he just shits on it.
Who is Jerry Garcia again?
Jerry Garcia is the guitarist of the Grateful Dead.
Oh, yeah.
And he was asked about hip hop when it was first coming out. He's like, it's not music. It's just rhyming. Like they don't even have instruments. They're not even singing. There's no choruses. They're just talking really fast over something that should sound like a drum beat but doesn't. Like, and like I'm not sure if consciously or unconsciously. I feel like the team at Outkast just kind of went, oh, okay, then let's get some real instruments. Let's get some real singers. Let's get some fucking like hooks in here. Let's have songs that are multiple parts, or have different sections, or even solos, and then like it becomes a musical album. So yeah, no, I think that this, I don't know, if we're doing standouts, definitely like all the features that would be outside of hip hop. Also, I really dig West Savannah. I think West Savannah was a really good song.
Yeah.
Outside of that, I don't know. It was a great album. I didn't listen to any songs on their own besides Spotty Yachty, just because I felt like this album was ridiculously cohesive, and it felt weird listening to stuff out of sync.
Hey, you should listen to it because one of the themes we wanted to do in this episode was like both of these albums are from America, but they're both in a way they're concept albums, and there's different ways to do them. So I kind of wanted to talk about the conceptual aspect of this album.
Yes,
and I believe what this album is trying to do, and I think it sets a great precedent for hip hop, is that it's trying to do what later hip hop artists, and I think all hip hop artists try to do, which is send a message through their art. Now, that's like no shit. All art does that. But I'm talking about specifically a socio-economic message pointed at a specific community of people. Because a lot of what this album is talking about is that it's saying two things. It's bringing a strong love and homage to the present of the South.
Yes.
And it asks this question, like, what is Southern pride? You know, when I say Southern pride to any random person, they're gonna think it's like the Confederacy and shit.
Yeah.
And like white people, but people forget, there's a lot of black people in the South, and they have a sense of Southern pride too. It's just different. It's their own flavor. And a lot of people look at Aquemini as being like the album that like defined the African American community's Southern pride. Because songs like Rosa Parks, songs like West Savannah, these songs are great homages to where they're from, and they really put the spirit of that. But also, a lot of what this album is trying to do is trying to push the community to do better. And it reminds me a lot of Marvin Gaye, of like a hopeful realism or optimistic realism.
Yeah.
Where it's like, they talk about some like dark stuff. Like for example, there's a line where it's in Return of the Gangsta, um, he's talking about people who got enough to buy an ounce, but not enough to bounce them kids to the zoo. You know, like he's
Yeah,
saying like you go and you gang bang and you sell drugs, but you don't take care of your children. You
yeah.
don't give them a good time.
I think what you're describing is literally the entirety of Return of the G.
Yeah, it's just all
Or like
bad
people want good stuff for themselves and the community, and then they make bad decisions around that. They want good idols
Yeah.
in their music, but then they buy music from gangsters. You know?
Yeah, part of the reason why Outkast doesn't do a gangster persona, they don't do drugs, uh, they don't do anything degenerate is because they want to set an example. And they
Okay.
don't rap about that stuff because they want to set an example, as opposed to other gangster music, which is kind of like, you know, it's telling you to go do this stuff or making it at least sound cool. And it's like, don't you want to do this stuff because it sounds cool,
Yeah. Or
right?
it's like sometimes most of it just sounds like to me, you're not cool enough to do the shit I do. You know?
Yeah, yeah.
It's almost like a dare.
Yeah, it's a dare, which for many people it is, and that's not a great thing to show to a community of people. Do you
No.
really think like stuff like that like affects a community?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah,
100%.
like
I see it to this day. I see that shit. I come from a privileged background. I went to a private school, and that shit was mostly, Asian, white kids. And even then, it's affecting, like, how they think of the world, you know?
yeah, yeah, because some people may argue, oh, it's just music, you know, and it's like movies. You will watch a movie where there's a killer, you're not gonna go kill people. Music is the same. Like that would be the argument against that.
I've heard that argument, but it's both ways, you know? Like, what's the... I'm I'm not sure if it's Ted Bundy. Who's a dude? Who's a gay serial killer that, like, cannibalized people?
Oh, Jeffrey Dahmer.
Jeffrey Dahmer, bro, that dude was obsessed with the Exorcist movies. And he
Yeah,
would watch those shits on repeat, and he would have his victims watch it too. Yeah.
that's fucked up.
No, but
That's
it's like
fucked up.
shit like that is like, okay, you could say is like, yeah, you show the Exorcist to the average person, they're not gonna do shit, but you show that to the wrong person, they're gonna like become really attached to it.
Yeah, and you don't really have a lot of control over what your music does once it's out. Once it's
Yeah,
out
and
there.
music have much more of a social dynamic. Like, movies, my favorite movies are not your favorite movies. But
Yeah.
for the most part, like, we can agree on like what good albums sound like, what good music sounds like. You know,
Yeah, like if a song is banging, it's banging.
it's banging.
You know,
Like, I
and
don't need
I
to be
feel
from Savannah, Georgia to enjoy Savannah, Georgia.
yeah, yeah, to enjoy this album.
Yeah.
And I especially with hip hop because it's so lyrical and it's like really good at delivering messages that I
Oh yeah.
think it's even worse because it's like okay, like we'll be talking about metal and metal can be violent,
Yeah.
but do you think the people who listen to metal are just all violent? I feel like
No, and there's also like once it's gonna be apparent once we get more in the
yeah, once we
Megadeth
get
side
into
of
some,
things, but with metal there's an impersonal thing. Um,
yeah, it kind of lets you be crazy in the moment you're listening to it.
yeah, like Slayer when he's there's a song called Angel of Death. The dude
Yeah.
never goes, "I am the Angel of Death." He's singing about like some other person who's the Angel of Death, some other person who's
Yeah.
like incredibly fucked up and violent, but not him.
Yeah, but in hip hop, it is him.
No, it's always him, or else it doesn't have the same punch, or else people are like, oh, it's too artsy.
Yeah,
You're
in hip
not,
hop,
you don't really live it.
yeah, in hip hop, you have Bobby Shmurda, who like literally did those things, and he's rapping about them
Yeah,
and stuff like that. So I think what Outkast is doing here is amazing, and
yeah,
it's kind of crazy. It took like this long for someone to really like come and sort of be the other side of the table.
well, hold up. If we can back up, you know how I brought up Grandmaster Flash?
Yeah.
The very first rappers in the 80s were about that shit. Like, we're about setting a positive example, a la Outkast, of like,
Oh yeah,
say no to drugs, say no to the gangster lifestyle,
Hip hop was
and
very
then
positive when it
And then
started.
more and more and more, it just became more edgy over time.
Oh, I feel like that's like the '90s grunge. Whatever
Yeah.
happened in the '90s.
Cause it's the same thing with metal. Like I'm not gonna excuse, cause like if you listen back to like the original Black Sabbath, is like it's a lot of protest music, and it's a lot of like, hey, don't mess with scary evil shit, cause that shit will fuck you up. It was not a celebration of it.
Proceeds to take the most ghostly haunted album cover in his backyard of all time.
Yeah. Or like even the metal thing, this shit.
Yeah.
This shit was popularized by a guitarist Dio, who
Oh yeah, DL.
yeah, you know Dio, right?
Yeah.
He said he got it from his Italian grandma as a way to ward off evil spirits. But he just started doing that at shows and it picked up, and now everyone thinks it's like the devil's horns. He's like, no, it's just Italian Santeria or some shit. Like
it's Catholic superstition. It's
it
powerful.
is actually Catholic superstition. Powerful.
Yeah. But how do you feel about that? About the whole like the power that Aquemini has to send a message through hip hop and how this was used in a lot of later hip hop. Kendrick Lamar, JID, Common. And
I'm not sure how much of like it influenced those guys, because first of all, you're saying that there's a positive message thing, and that I can agree with, and a lot of people pick that up, but a few less people picked up something that I think is very integral that Andre 3000 is also aiming at, which is just pride in oneself outside of the multitude, being like I'm proud to be weird as fuck to the point that people think I'm gay or in a cult or whatever the fuck. And
that's what the song Aquemini, the song itself, is about.
Yeah.
Aquemini is just Andre 3000 is an Aquarius. No way, I think he's the Gemini, and Big Boy's the Aquarius, and you just combine them. Aquemini. But yeah. That song is about like a lot of people doubting their dynamic as a duo, because one is like the art kid and one is kind of a thug. Yeah. And that's them saying like, nah, we are brothers forever. We are Aquemini. We are fused in one.
Okay.
And I think they have like my favorite dynamic out of any hip hop duo of all time.
Yeah.
Because they just are like yin and yang in a way.
They really balance each other out.
Yeah, they do, because some songs are like really out there and like really psychedelic, but then Big Boy will bring it back with like a true to the ground hip hop kind of sound. Mm-hmm. And then the next verse will be Andre like spinning like the craziest flows and whatnot. And I feel like you need this. This is a powerful dynamic you see in music. The grounded fella and the man in the sky.
Yeah, because the man in the sky usually burns out really quick, and the grounded fella just usually can't piece the big picture thing. And so I see that dynamic all the time. Like one really famous version of that is the Paul McCartney John Lennon dynamic, where John fucking nuts, and he wants to do everything, and Paul is like, wait a minute, bro, we're in a pop band. you gotta chill out.
We need to be normal.
Yeah.
On the radio.
It's like, John, half of the album can't be Revolution 9, alright?
Yeah, wait, would you say like Syd Barrett and like Roger Waters or maybe David Gilmour like that?
I think that's like a fail thing, because like the Syd Barrett thing is the dude Sid thought that he was the only one.
Oh,
he's the only songwriter, therefore he's not going to listen to anyone. And when his mental health really got bad, and he started feeling that disconnect from his other bandmates, he thought the problem was with everyone else. You know?
Yeah.
And without even getting into like how schizophrenia affects someone, because that's also pretty brutal. And for a long time, it was Brian Wilson and Mike Love of Beach Boys, but I feel like that dynamic devolved into they both felt like they were holding each other back, and that's not what I feel like with Big Boy and Andre 3000, like they're holding each other up. They're celebrating each other's like key characteristics. Yeah.
Yeah. And even when eventually there's Speaker Box and Love Below, which was like basically two different albums because Big Boy wanted to make more traditional hip hop while Andre 3000 wanted to make more like experimental pop.
Mm-hmm.
They still made the albums together, and when they ended the band, they didn't end it because they were mad at each other. They're still friends today. It was more that they just saw that Outkast finished. It said its message. It was done.
It's this thing. It's established Atlanta. They put Atlanta on the map.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it really expands the spirit of hip hop. This album specifically, Aquemini, did so much for everything you could possibly, like you were saying earlier. We have instrumentation, we got George Clinton, we got
Erykah Badu, bro. Like, fuck off. Like we have everything.
Yeah, and Erykah Badu on this album, I like to put at the time, Andre 3000 and Erykah Badu were dating, I believe, and
nice.
And we know the effect Erykah Badu has on men, where she starts dating him, and now they're dressing up in like hippie clothing and starts making soul songs.
Yeah, they're now saying I am no longer human, bro.
I am a part of the world and the earth. And yeah, some like notable random examples I want to bring up on this album of some of the storytelling, specifically on the art of storytelling, part 1 and 2. These songs does a thing that might be reminiscent of a certain rapper from Compton that we enjoy.
Yes.
Which is this song. Both Big Boy and Andre 3000 are rapping about fictional made-up women. For Big Boy, it's Susie Screw, who's like a promiscuous woman.
Mm-hmm.
And then for Andre, Susie Screw's got a friend called Sasha Thumper. As in, like, when you have a heroin needle and you thump it before you put it in to represent that she's like an addict. And it's Andre 3000's verse on that album, on that song, super sad, but it's very reminiscent to me later on of Kendrick, because Kendrick Lamar would often use like a fictional woman to represent something, like Lucy, or the woman in the second verse of "Sing About Me, I'm Dying of Thirst." And et cetera, et cetera. What do you think? What do you think about that?
I can see it. I've always seen that device be used by very socially conscious rappers in a way to sing about the community's most vulnerable. You know?
Yeah.
And it's like, what's the most vulnerable part is a young woman that could be a mother and just gets shitted on by the world, you know? And Lucy is a different device. I feel like Lucy has some elements of seductiveness.
Yeah, it's Lucifer.
Right.
So
it's Lucifer. It's actually the devil, but I do enjoy that it's female, because like it does have that sense of like, yeah, it seems harmless, you know?
Yeah, it masquerades.
Exactly. But I'm not sure if Tupac did something similar along these lines. Just because Tupac at the same time, this is like 94, 90, 95. When did he die?
Yeah. I think he died in 95.
Yeah, towards the end of his career, he's starting to become really conscious. Really socially conscious. And really like, oh, I gotta give a good example. Like, he even has a song dedicated to his mom, you know?
Yeah.
Where it's like,
that's
hey,
what Machiavelli was about for Tupac. Was him taking on a different name so he can be more expressive and conscious in that way.
Mm-hmm. So I can see, I see that what Aquemini represents in that regard as a general trend is like, as hip hop becomes more popular, as hip hop starts affecting people, kids all across the nation, these hip hop artists that are getting millions of listens are like, oh shit, I gotta tell these kids something good, like not just impress my friends, right?
Yeah.
I gotta actually, like, you know, make sure I can support the community, give back.
To send the message. a positive message. Yep. I want to talk about the art of storytelling part 2, which you said you really liked. Mostly, I just want to bring up this Andre 3000 quote that says, what the song is about is, I do remember thinking, what if it was the end of the world and we had to get to the dungeon on some X-Men superhero shit? I think I was vibing on some end of the world last recorded song shit. Like, I always remember, what's the last song recorded in the world gonna sound like? So the art of storytelling too is literally the story of the world is ending, which is why there's like tornadoes and shit and thunder. And it's like they're running into the studio to make the final song to record.
That's actually fantastic. Also, now that you bring up art of storytelling part 2, there's a sample from it from Camel. Camel is a counterberry rock band from '73, and I'm like, there's no way Andre knows about this shit, bro.
It could be Organized Noise, the producers.
Honestly, the producer that kind of goated for that one.
They do use some samples, and they're not entirely, but I would say like a below average amount from other hip hop.
Yeah. Also Spotty Yachty. There is one drum. There's like one drum track that I've listened to on Genesis's album, "Selling England by the Pound."
Yes.
I've listened to that, and I'm like, man, someone's really got to sample that. Cause that drum beat. There's a lot. There's a lot of what's his name? Phil Collins. That I think is very, very, very sampleable. And I'm so glad that someone actually went out of their way and did it for Moonlit Night. And I heard that shit, Spotty Eyes. I was like, there's no way. So yeah, no, this is my prog fan coming out being like, God damn, you know?
Yeah. So let's go into the section where I talk about, if you like this album, what else should you listen to?
Parliament. You gotta listen to Parliament. You gotta listen to Mothership Connection yesterday. Like that, dude, it's so good. First of all, it's a 10 out of 10 record, and I'll fight people who would tell me otherwise. Second of all, it's all of the fun stuff from this album. Like all of the psychedelia, all of the funk, all of the groove, all of the danceability. Like it's right there. So number 1, Parliament, Mothership Connection for sure.
Yep. But yeah, this album has like psychedelic funk all over it. It's in the lifeblood of this album. If you want more like the Southern soul kind of vibe and more Southern hip hop, especially ones produced by Organized Noise, Soul Food by Goody Mob is almost like a companion to Outkast at this time. Soul Food has CeeLo Green, who's on Liberation in Aquemini. And it's there's some songs on that are so holy, like holier than thou songs. I love on it.
Is CeeLo Green like related to Al Green by any chance?
I don't. That's a good question. I don't know.
We about to search up. This is the searching up episode.
Yeah,
guys.
No, you just got the same song, same last name.
True.
But if you like conscious hip hop from around the same time, Things Fall Apart by The Roots. That album was amazing. We will probably do it on the show at some point because I love that album so much, especially if you like the live instrumentation aspect of this album. That album also has a lot of live instrumentation. But also the segue into what Outkast's impact has on music. The next 2 albums I recommend are future albums, both from Southern hip hop rappers that I would also argue are very thematically similar things, where there are homages to the respective region. They are sort of storytelling albums, and they usually have some kind of positive message or some kind of hopeful message of some sort. And the 2 I would recommend are The Forever Story by JID, which is amazing. Also a southern hip hop artist, and Melt My Eyes See the Future by Denzel Curry, which also has a lot of live instrumentation and is from the same city I grew up in, Miami Gardens. So,
Very nice. Okay.
right.
I've actually never listened to Denzel Curry.
You gotta listen to dude, Melt My Eyes See the Future. Oh my. Okay, there's two versions of the album. There's the normal one, which is more hip hoppy,
Okay.
and then I forgot what there's a name for it. I think it's like it's like the cool version or the soul something version, and that's like if they all of the instrumentation was live jazz, and it's crazy good. The other version, the jazz version, is way better, but I also appreciate the original version. But you have to listen to it. It's the most Florida album I can think of in my brain right now. It's so true to Florida. It feels like Florida. It's Florida in a music note. It's so great.
That's high praise.
High praise. Really, really like that one. But also, who else have they influenced? Kendrick Lamar.
Of course.
Lamar has gone out and said that Aquemini is a big influence to how you construct albums. And if anyone is really good at sending a message through music, it's Kendrick. So Aquemini, I feel like, is the forefront of all that.
I think the forefront of like most pop rap since just in general. Like how do you make hip hop sound fun and party like listen to Outkast?
I think their sense of like you and I have talked about this, like making top 40 pop music is really hard.
Yeah.
Because it requires a very specific skill set and like creative touch to like what people like.
Yeah.
Outkast is also super good at doing that. I mean, Hey Ya is one of those popular songs ever written.
Yeah.
And Roses is amazing. Miss Jackson is amazing.
Yes.
I forgot. I Like the Way You Move, also super good.
Hey Ya, if you actually pay attention to the lyrics, it's about how easy it is to make a pop song that will blow up, and how like I don't even have to like say shit. I just gotta be like, hey Ya, and you guys will eat it up. That's the entire track, and it's their #1 hit now.
Hey Ya is also about like how people have situationships and bad relations, and they just sleep around and do degenerate stuff.
Yeah.
And y'all don't listen. And it's kind of funny how it's like an extremely popular pop song that people do those things
to,
and you just don't even listen to Andre 3000 as he's rapping.
The swimming pools effect, if you will.
The swimming pools effect. For anyone who doesn't know, this is the idea that Swimming Pools Drank by Kendrick is an anti-drinking song, but it's also a very dope song to drink to.
It's very popular to drink to.
Yeah, and it's kind of conflicting.
It's a meme.
Supposed to do.
Just go to the comment section and you know what? Make this really fun for yourself. Take a shot every time someone mentions drinking alcohol in the comment section.
Yeah, but any closing thoughts on this album?
Nah, it's all groovy. It's groovy.
Okay, wait. I wanted to bring up a quote from who is this? David Dennis Jr., who is a journalist, a music journalist who talked about this album, and I feel like he really puts the concept into it very well. May I say this as a closing thought of this album?
Yes.
Yes. The idea of having pride in the South for a long time generally has been associated with whiteness. Southern pride conjures images of Confederate flags and a longing for a time when the states below the Mason-Dixon could own black people. But what about black Southerners? What do we have pride in? Growing up in Mississippi, I didn't find any pride in my elementary school named Jefferson Davis. I didn't find pride in a Dixie flag fluttering above my head every time I drove through downtown Jackson. But when Andre 3000 grabbed that mic at the Source Awards, he gave black kids of the South to be proud of, something to be proud of. They made us feel pride in a place that wasn't made for us to feel happy in. That night in New York shifted the culture. Black kids had been wearing Timbs in hot Mississippi streets because they wanted to be like Wu-Tang Clan. We thought that being like a New Yorker was the pinnacle of black culture, and if we wanted to make it out of the South, then we had to focus, we had to make futures for ourselves. But what Andre 3000 claimed that night, and what Outkast declared on Aquemini, was that surviving and thriving in the South was its own victory. Outkast showed us our own reflections as seen in the shiny spokes of Volkswagens and Bonnevilles, Chevrolets and Coupe de Villes bouncing off old National Highway potholes. They reminded us of the life we can find pride in, the Bayou Classics, the Essence Festivals, music crafted with the same love and care that the Gula used to weave a perfectly made handbasket, that perfect slap of a domino smacking the table to drown out the sound of stomachs growling, waiting for the ribs to get off the grill. Yeah. That's the beauty of this album.
God bless. God bless.
All right.
True Southern pride.
God bless. 10 out of 10. My favorite Outkast album. And I think that's a wrap.
That's a wrap.
Yep. All right. You want to take a little break before?
Yeah.
Rest in peace. All right.
How we doing?
It was good. That was literally perfectly an hour.
No way.
Exactly an hour. It was exactly an hour.
That's perfect. That's so good. We're getting good at this.
We're getting good at the literally perfectly an hour. I am going to use the bathroom.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll be back.
I'm gonna get some wine. Yo, what up?
There we go.
Okay. All right.
Any notes?
Um, no notes. I just there's um I might look over at my notes for the reasons why not Marty Freeman, why Dave Mustaine was kicked out of Metallica, because there's a lot.
Oh shit.
There's,
We're going into drama.
we might, if you want.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it says too much about this record, but this is literally one of the most famous feuds in like music history.
You gotta go into it.
Yeah.
All right. Are you
All
ready?
right. Yes.
All right. On 1, 5, 4, 3, 2.
Hold up. Now you can do.
Okay. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, everyone. We're back. Just finished Outkast's Aquemini, and now we're gonna move on to Lewis's album, Rest in Peace. Let's start, Lewis.
All right. Well, first things first. What was your initial impression of this album?
So, Lewis knows this. I am not a huge fan of metal.
Yes, I was taking a really big chance. I knew Nick has never listened to this record before.
No, I never listened to. The only metal I like is And Justice for All because
Wait, what? Yo, this is news to me, bro.
And the reason why is because my dad loves Metallica and he loves that album and he's played it 4,000 times that it's like Stockholmed into my brain.
Yes.
So that's why I like it. The other metal I like is Electric Wizard because they're weird and I like the weird stuff, and Burzum because Burzum is kind of like, I think my biggest issue with metal is that every song can sound too similar because it's very it's crazy, which is why I like Burzum because it's like ambient metal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's a little different. So my impression of Rest in Peace was this shit fucks. This shit's
Okay.
going crazy. It actually has like different song structures. And if you listen closely, it's doing things. It's doing things. I can like sniff. I feel like I listen to music enough where I can now like sniff the jazz. And
Yeah.
I'm like, is that what I'm thinking it is? But
Oh, yeah.
also, last night, because this is the first album Lewis has recommended with lyrics, I decided that as I'm working, I'm gonna have the lyrics posted up and I'm just listening to the album and like look at the lyrics, like actually look at them. And really good lyrics. I'm surprised. It
Yeah.
has like meaning. Wait, we're talking about some real shit here. Surprisingly, still topical, sadly topical things. And
Actually,
some, like,
yeah.
some like boomer conspiracy theory stuff. It's poetic. There's some songs that are really poetic, like Tornado of Souls is really poetic.
Okay.
And I'm like, I didn't expect, because when I guess I'm a metal hater or some shit. Because when I hear metal, I just imagine like, and I guess there's no substance. I'm like, that's my problem. But I like this album. 10 out of 10 album cover. Gotta be one of my favorite. I am a sucker for ridiculous album covers. I love this one. Yeah, I have to ask you: is the skeleton guy like a character?
Yeah, he's a mascot. Oh, I forgot his
He's a
name.
mascot.
Hold up. I'm gonna find this out. But yeah, he's got a mascot. He's got a very particular name. Sometimes he comes out to shows.
Comes out
Like
the
there's
show?
they'll either have like a doll that looks like him, or they'll have a dude that looks like him.
Wait, I gotta look this up. I'll put a picture. His name is Vic Rattlehead.
Yes.
Duh.
Yes.
Is that like a metal thing? Cause what's the other metal band that has like the hooded guy, the shadow dude?
Well, that could be like so many.
Fuck.
Are you- wait, are you ta-
if you know.
Are you talking about Ghost?
Not Ghost, but they have like the Dune cover. I know. It's a more popular one. If someone in the comments 100% knows who it is, put it in the comments below. But it's like Shadow Dude or something like that. But it's also a mascot. Is that like a metal thing to have a mascot?
I think it's a metal thing when you don't want to be like super edgy. Like it's one way of cutting down on the edginess. It's just be like, yeah, we got a mascot, you know?
Like how serious does metal take itself from 1 to 10?
It depends. It has every which way. You know, there's black metal, the genre, which are super serious. They're serious enough to kill people over, burn churches over.
Yeah, Burzum, literally
like
killing someone. Yeah.
Yeah, and then there's black metal, the album by Venom, which was made as a joke of like what would it sound like if a band was way too edgy for their own good and made this really shit genre called black metal. And that is legitimately the origin of black metal. I kid you not. Search this up. The record isn't even black metal, by the way. It would be more like lo-fi recorded thrash. It's like Kill 'Em All style, but even more lo-fi. And technically people will argue that that's the first black metal album or the first thrash metal album, first death metal album. But they were legitimately like, what would it sound like if a band just sucked all the joy out of their songwriting? It just made, and it's a joke album. It's a parody album that came out before the genre.
That's wild.
Yeah, but so you can have this entire like thing, and even within thrash metal, because I think, you know, there's some bands that take it super seriously, like. And there's some bands that take it like or like Megadeth, where they have really serious lyrics and then a mascot, or Metallica, where, you know, they are pop writers at the end of the day. They're making hits at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So it depends.
But I feel like when I was listening to the lyrics of Rust in Peace, it's pretty serious. Well, some parts are serious. Some parts are. So where would you put this?
It's as serious as like how X-Files is serious.
Oh,
X-Files talks about some serious shit, has some really dark moments, has some really scary moments, but like there is some level of like B-movie to it. Yeah. There is some level of like fantasy to it. And I think like that's like kind of the niche that metal used to fill, of like it's just fucking cool. Instead of it being like, oh, it's got to be edgy and evil, you know?
Yeah, it's just raw as fuck.
Yeah.
All right, so tell me where does this album come from? What's it about? What is it? What is this?
Okay, well, I think this album comes from thrash metal kind of breaking away from what most people usually expect it to be. I don't, like, you probably listen to Rust in Peace. If you haven't listened to a lot of thrash metal, it can be easy to imagine that most thrash metal sound like that. It does not. Most thrash metal sounds like Slayer or early Metallica, in which the emphasis was either on the punk that influenced thrash, or the death metal that it's like driving towards, like by making things super fast. And I think a lot of what Megadeth is doing is going back to a lot of the new wave of British heavy metal that influenced thrash early on. So the first thrash metal bands were influenced by Saxon, Iron Maiden, Judas Priest, Motorhead, and Motorhead has a lot of punk elements, which is why Metallica picked them up so well. But Judas Priest, and even more so Iron Maiden, they're first of all British bands, and they're listening to British prog rock and putting that into their music.
That's why I was like, is there a little prog in this? Is there a little, I can like sniff the prog out a bit, like the prog influence there.
Oh yeah, for sure. And there's definitely a lot of there's a lot of influence coming in from Rush as well. But the biggest influence of like why they take on like proggy songs, I think, comes from Iron Maiden, because Iron Maiden kept on moving on to bigger structures, more conceptual albums, and it begins with Number of the Beast.
Yeah.
And then they continue to something like Power Slave, and Power Slave is most of the songs are 10 minutes. You know, and it's not just like one 5 minute guitar solo. It's a lot different guitar solos and parts scattered throughout that have different styles, and also they're picking up a lot of like, especially on that record, because they're like, okay, let's try to go for the Egyptian sort of sound. They're picking up a lot of exotic scales that I think would influence Megadeth later on. But Megadeth is trying to break away from what thrash usually is, just because I think that Mustaine is trying to get out of the Metallica shadow. So, for those who don't know, Metallica started in '83 with Dave Mustaine as the main songwriter and the main guitarist. He pretty much responded to an ad from Hetfield and from Ulrich, and he did, apparently he didn't even audition. He just showed up, knew enough like cool bands for them, and they're like, "You're in. Let's get some beer."
That was it.
Especially because like when they audition people didn't know like their metal. They just knew Black Sabbath. Knew just Black Sabbath, Judas Priest, and that was it. And they're like, "No, dude." And he is Mustaine is a music nerd. He has older siblings that were musicians before him, so that's where he's coming from. And at the same time, he was like out playing with bands really early on. He apparently as a way to rebel against his mom that was forcing him to become Jehovah's Witness. And he's like, I don't want any part of that. Fuck that noise. Let me go the extreme opposite end and do everything that like stands against it. Like musical expression, like edgy art, like going out late, you know?
Yeah.
And that's where it came from. So Metallica started off that way. They're getting big. They recorded demos. They in fact wrote the entirety of Kill 'Em All along with the solos. But while that's happening, keep in mind Dave Mustaine now is chilled out, but from all I've seen, including his own admission, he was an asshole. He very, 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 very short-tempered, and everyone in the band was drinking a lot. So there was a few altercations. He got kicked out of Metallica a few times, and then joined they would have like a serious altercation. He'd get kicked out, and then the very next day, he'd be like, "Hey man, can I come back?" They're like, "Yeah, sure." Right? Until
Relationship.
they drove from California all the way up to New York to record a debut, and then they get there, they sit him down, they're like, "You're out of the band."
What?
And then they gave him a ticket to drive for a bus back.
Damn. So he's got that whole time the bus ride.
Yeah, so the entire time he's like thinking to himself, like, "Do I really want to play guitar?" He's like 20 at the time, by the way.
Damn.
They just got signed a few months ago. They're already seeing money come in, and literally just gets fired right then and there. He's driving back, and he's and I think at this point he makes the decision like, "Well, I'm not gonna let this stop me. I'm gonna make something that's even heavier and cooler than Metallica."
Yeah, he's got a stunner. He's gonna become a rival, antagonist over here.
And it was kind of hard because Metallica came out with Kill 'Em All and Ride the Lightning back to back, and then the year that Megadeth was really coming to their own, they released Master of Puppets, and Master of Puppets definitely pushed the thrash onto like a whole new level of. First of all, it's very well produced, and it's moving away from the punk influence. It's moving towards more intricate songwriting, and I think that's when Dave really was like, "Oh, this is what I can do with the genre. I can get even crazier." And he made sure that he got drummers that a drummer and guitarist that were really, really not just good at doing metal, but good at doing jazz fusion. And his main ideas were to get it even just add stuff like odd time signatures, exotic scales, even faster tempos, even bigger songs. Just something that it can't even be considered. It can't be considered traditional thrash, and it can't be considered the sort of more commercial stuff that Metallica was doing at the time. And that's where most of it comes from.
Yeah, that's one of the things. The difficulties I have with metal is like it's thrashing hard, but if you listen closely, you can hear that jazz fusion. I could hear like the post-hardcore influence. I can
Oh
like
yeah,
if it's like a scratch and sniff, scratchy. Like you can feel the influence, but it's still thrash. It's still
it's still
subtle. It's still
thrash.
going insane. You know?
Yeah, and that post-hardcore influence, I'm not sure what came is like chicken and egg problem because this is 1990,
Yeah.
and Fugazi just got onto the scene,
Yeah.
and there's already other thrash metal bands that are taking on hardcore elements. If you listen to Slayer's release of 1990 as well, I think it's Seasons in the Abyss. You're also gonna hear much more of like there's songs that go super fast and there's songs that are laid back. There's songs that are really intricate drumming wise. There's songs that have a lot of what would later become math rock elements,
Yeah.
and yeah. So there's already bands starting to do that, but like I don't think anyone hits it as hard on the head as Megadeth at this point. There might maybe in the death metal scene, but I would admit it. I'm gonna admit it now. I don't know shit about death metal, so I don't know how it's speaking to the thrash metal community at the time.
Hmm. Was it death metal?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Never mind. I thought you were saying black metal. I was gonna say I thought black metal was Norwegian.
So there's American black metal, and then there's Norwegian black metal, and those are two different genres.
Yeah, yeah. How many metals do we have?
There's an insane amount, and luckily, and it makes it super easy to write about and research because it's so well documented. It's almost academic. The fact that I can search up the first thrash metal album is not even like a huge debate. Like I searched up the first metal album, people say it's Black Sabbath, but there's a bunch of other bands doing very, very similar sounds around the time. And it's like, nope, the first thrash metal album was Kill 'Em All. First thrash metal influences were from Venom's black metal. The first thrash metal single was Hit the Lights. Like, you know, it and all these genres they're very, very specific of what separates them.
Yeah. Well, I want to ask, what separates something like hard rock, like Led Zeppelin or Deep Purple, into being metal?
Metal. Back then, it was just the imagery. It's just the satanic imagery.
Oh, is there like a scale of like how hard? Like here's hard rock, and then you go a little harder, and now you're metal.
No, it's like you're doing hard rock songs, and now your lyrics are about the devil. Immediately metal.
It was like the Satanic Panic era.
Well, this is so early metal. This is like 1969, 1970.
Yeah,
Because Paranoid came out 70.
yeah,
And so but then but I think this Satanic Panic and like even like the more overt edginess came from what's been described as a new wave of British heavy metal, which is
yeah,
is heavy metal. It's the first wave of musicians that are specifically in it to make metal, because before everyone else was kind of accidentally discovering it. Black Sabbath accidentally stumbled upon metal. Before then, there was no. And same thing with Zeppelin. Same thing with like other like classic doom metal. But it was like Judas Priest that were the first ones to be like, we are in it to make edgy music. We are in it to to do fast riffs, and then from there came like very overt, like we are separate from rock music sort of bands.
So speaking to the edginess, when I was looking at the lyrics of this album,
Hmm.
I was surprised on how hippie it is. It's an album calling for peace. That's what Rust in Peace is about.
Most good metal albums are like, you go to Paranoid. Paranoid is just a Vietnam protest album.
Yeah.
It's just that instead of singing about what you should hope for, they sing about what you should fear.
Well, yeah, it's like, yeah, it's trying to scare you. Like Rust in Peace, the song Rust in Peace,
Yeah,
it sounds like nuclear devastation,
yeah,
and that's what it's calling against.
yeah. And if you listen to Hand of Doom, it's against drug use.
Yeah.
It describes drug use pretty blatantly, but it's like, dude, it's gonna fuck up your life, sort of thing. Or you listen to War Pigs, and War Pigs is not a celebration of war. It's very much like people who send other people to war are evil, and they will drag us down with them.
Yeah. And you can see that like the drug use one, Poison Was the Cure, on this album.
Mhm.
It's like poetic. But what I was reading, it's about like the drug abuse,
Mhm.
and specifically methadone, and how he was
Mhm.
very against methadone because he believed that all it does is replace your heroin addiction with a methadone addiction, and it doesn't really do anything.
Yeah.
It's just another poison.
Yeah, now you've gone from illegal to legal. Congrats, you are still an addict.
Yeah. What do you think is sort of the synopsis? Like, what is this album trying to get the message?
It's a lot of paranoia about the early 90s, and specifically about people in power. I really do like that this album, outside of like Five Magics, avoids stuff like the supernatural. It talks about things that are very clearly here, and we don't need any devil or moral universe to describe them as evil. And I know Dave Mustaine is really hippie-ish. You see him in interviews. He is, first of all, very proud and devout Christian. Kind of weird from a thrash metal guitarist. I'm not gonna lie.
Okay.
And also like he's very, he makes he just like Eric, just like Andre 3000 Big Boy. He is very much like, I want to be a good example through my music. I never ever want to tell people that violence is okay, or that that drug use is the solution. If anything, when he's singing like from the perspective of these characters, he's pointing out how dumb they are sometimes, how counterintuitive they are to themselves. And one thing he loves doing, and I haven't seen this for a whole lot of artists, he makes sure he researched a lot about what the song is about. He wants to be like Kubrick. He wants to be like as realistic and as accurate as possible about what he's singing. So like when he did Polaris Rust in Peace, he researched for a good minute all the effects that nuclear war would have. And he tried to get as much of those into the album. When he researched Holy Wars, he researched religiously motivated conflict in the modern world. When he was doing Poison Was the Cure, like he even talked to people who were methadone addicts. You know, and Hangar 18 is pretty obvious. Like he just read up on UFOs.
I love Anger 18 is my favorite song on the album.
Really?
I love boomer conspiracy theories.
I love boomer conspiracy theories.
I love Deus Ex, X-Files Core, and Hangar 18 is in the album cover of like the alien and the Men in Black behind them and shit. Also Hangar 18, the ending, just the fucking riffs go so so hard.
Well, the transition on Hangar 18, you know what I'm talking about. The transition is one of the craziest moments, at least for me, in guitar playing, just in general.
Yeah.
if you guys don't know what we're talking about, pause this video right now. Go listen to Hangar 18. Just listen to it. You know exactly. I don't even need to give you what time frame it is. You know exactly what transition I'm talking about. That's how fucking crazy this shit is.
I start with all the acoustic in between Holy Wars and The Punishment Due.
Yeah.
Fucking amazing. Beautiful.
Oh, if we can go somewhat back to the feud, Dave Mustaine. So Dave Mustaine's distaste of Metallica doesn't come so much from like him being fired. It was both the manner of which they did it, and also the fact that they kept a lot of his song parts, like a lot of stuff that he wrote.
Oh, so they stole his stuff.
Yeah. So the acoustic parts on Ride the Lightning, except for the very first song, is all Dave Mustaine's writing. The entirety of Call of Cthulhu is Dave Mustaine. In fact, some of the riffs off Leper Messiah, which is the third Metallica album, this is 3 years after he got fired, written by Dave Mustaine.
Oh, see, I was doing like a little bit of research, and it was like who it was like a Reddit thread was who was greatly influenced by Megadeth, and the number one post was Metallica.
Yeah,
so they just took it.
Yeah, they took. So a lot of what he was frustrated about, like the fact that like they're blowing up, they're literally becoming the most famous band of all time off his music. He wrote all of the solos that Kirk plays on the first album.
That's fucked up.
Yeah.
That's disgusting.
He said he did get some royalties from the first album, but that's it.
That's fucked up.
Yeah. So
was it sort of like a drive to like be as different as possible to Metallica and like just kind of.
Yeah, and it's very, very clear in interviews, because especially like a lot of interviews at the time, their first question is going to be, how do you feel about X popular artist in your genre? You know? Yeah. And every time it was Metallica, he just either went on a rant or be like, this interview's over. I'm fucking done. Like, yeah. And also in the 90s, in all the interviews that I've seen, it's pretty clear, like, man, this dude was a firecracker. That's for fucking sure. So while I do feel bad about what happened to him, I can't say I don't see why they fired him. Does that make sense?
Okay, it's one end to fire him because he's difficult to work with, but the stealing of the riffs.
The stealing of the riffs is crazy.
Is messed up.
Because he specifically asked when he was fired to not take his music.
Yeah, write your own stuff.
Yeah, he's like, all right, dude. Well, I'm gonna leave with half the songs, and they're like, no, you're gonna get royalties.
Oh, and that was sort of them saying it would be okay to take the riffs. Yeah,
like they, contract. I don't know what the contract looks like, but he got royalties for that album. He didn't get royalties for Ride the Lightning, and he didn't get royalties for Master of Puppets, and he didn't get credit for the Leper Messiah thing, and that was something he kept on bringing up in interviews when it came out, when they dropped Leper Messiah in '86. He's like, no one hit me up that they were going to use that.
That's messed up. So do you think he successfully made something that Metallica can never steal?
Oh, no. Well, first of all, yes. And mostly because of the drumming. The drumming is such a step above. On Rust in Peace, you compare that drumming to Lars. Lars is not a very technical drummer. He's not an on-time signature drummer. He's definitely not a multi-part drummer.
The drumming on this album is awesome. The drumming was like,
oh my god.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I do feel like he succeeded in that front. Like he literally like built up Metallica, and then when it got dropped, he proved that it wasn't luck. He's like, no, I am one of the best thrash guitarists, thrash writers of all time. I can do this shit from scratch, and he did. And God bless him, really. And it's, I think that in his head it's the same way, because like after 1990, after the drop of Rust in Peace, he's way more chill and in interviews. He's like lost a lot of venom for the Metallica thing. He's just like,
Out of the system.
yeah, like, because all the interviews from the '80s are like, oh my gosh. And then you see the Joe Rogan with him now. And he's like, there's no bitterness between me and Metallica. Me and the Metallica guys talk occasionally. Like, we hang out.
Oh yeah.
It's like we're dads now, so it's different. So
Yeah, he beasted on them.
yeah,
It's out. It's over. The feud is over. There was peace.
there was
Feud
peace.
rested in peace.
Yeah, and I think it's also like they stopped competing because Metallica went in a way that it's not thrash metal. Like past the Black Album, like the Black Album is not thrash. It's like alternative metal. It's way slower. It's way heavier. It's way more influenced by alternative rock that's happening in the '90s than anything in the thrash metal scene. And but then at the same time, Dave Mustaine is continuing this, going from Rust in Peace all the way to Euthanasia, and that's like straight thrash. And I think at that point there's also that thing of they're not competing, they're not comparing anymore.
Yeah.
Because before that, all the releases are pretty obvious that like he's like responding to what they're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're bouncing off each other. Do you think metal's like that a lot? Like it's a lot of bouncing off of each other, competition.
In the
Who's
'80s,
the artist?
in the '80s, it definitely was, and that's why Metallica wanted to be on top of that. And there was this competition both in the metal scene and in the punk scene. It's like, who can play the fastest? Who can have the most gnarly solos? Who can have the craziest breakdowns? Who can sing the edgiest lyrics? And there's like that. It's almost like the edginess arms race that exploded around the era of grunge, because you get to grindcore, and like there's only so much you can do before it's just squealing from both the singer and the guitarist, while the drums are just. It just sounds like a machine gun. You know.
And then you get new metal.
Yeah, and new metal is like, oh, hip hop. Ooh, hip hop, nice. Record scratches, nice.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, and so yeah, no, I feel like this really pushed the genre, and it's the pinnacle. I don't think thrash metal can get better than this. Without it becoming something way different.
Yeah, this is the magnum opus, the perfect thrash metal right here.
Okay. So what bands do you see this influencing, like, afterwards? Do you see hints of Megadeth anywhere?
When it comes to like hard music, I'm not amazing at it. I actually think I don't know. I feel like this kind of dropped because at the time you're this is 1990, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you have grunge.
Mm-hmm.
But you also have like the alternative stuff, and as you said before, Metallica went more into the alternative stuff.
Yeah.
So I don't know really if this. I felt like at the time that kind of the rest of the music went away from this. And Dave Mustaine must have been like, I don't give a fuck. I'm gonna still make the best goddamn thrash metal album ever. And
yeah.
I don't even care if we're doing grungy shit or anything, or we got hip hop now or whatever. I'm making the best thing ever, and I'm getting it out of my system. So I don't know. Maybe you could tell me what this is influenced.
You see, I'm not so sure, because once again with the extreme metal, like, that makes sense, right? Other forms of thrash, other forms of death, things that like try and pick up from there. What I see a whole lot of is the influence on alternative rock and alternative metal in general. There's a lot of the slower components of not just this record, but other thrash metal records that I'm like, oh, this is straight up Alice in Chains, like the flangery sort of sound, you know?
Yeah, Dawn Patrol reminded me a lot of early Red Hot Chili Peppers, where it's like a bass line and it's kind of spoke. Dawn Patrol was really scary, by the way. That song was scary,
Yeah.
and it's like a bass line and like just like a voice in your ear. It reminded me of Blood Sugar Sex Magic.
Yeah. My
Yeah.
favorite detail on this whole album is the mole sound at the end.
Oh
The
yeah,
rats.
yeah,
Like that's
yeah.
my favorite detail on the whole record. It's not even that impressive a detail. It's just like it's so tasteful. It's
What is
so
that? What is that signifying? Like,
I don't know. It just freaks me out. It just what the fuck? It's just gnarly. I think it's supposed to be because like he talks about the mole people. That's a sound that moles make.
mole people.
Yeah, because he's like we're all underground now. We're all moles.
Yeah. Oh, I wanted to talk about the Five Magics
Okay.
because I love the meme of that metal rock people are nerds. The Five Magics is the same book that inspired Magic the Gathering.
Really? I had
Like,
no idea about. I
because
didn't
you have the Five Magics right here. You see?
know fucking when did Magic the Gathering come out?
93.
Okay.
So this was ahead. This was
This
ahead of Magic.
what true, but you're talking about there's a book called The Five Magics?
Yeah, it's the Master of the Five Magics, which the Megadeth song is about. And that same book, the creator of Magic, Richard Garfield, read it and he wanted to make a card game, kind of based off the same Magic system.
Okay.
So they both come with it. But not just that, like you had Led Zeppelin songs that were literally like scenes from Lord of the Rings and a bunch of like nerdy stuff in rock.
Oh, that's always been a thing, and that leads to like why there's so many classifications of metal. It's like it's nerd shit, bro. They got to put it in boxes. They got to keep it neat.
No, but Five Magics is awesome.
It's my
melding
favorite song on the album, personally.
I love melding fantasy with metal. It goes so hard.
Yes.
And I kind of like just like this freedom to this album where they do kind of talk about what they feel like talking about. Like, oh, here's the Alien song. Here's a song about methadone. Here's a song about a fantasy book I liked. Here's a song about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Now we're gonna talk about the Punisher
Yeah.
because the Punisher is awesome. It's it's
No,
it's kind of like kiddish in a way, but it's dope.
yeah, that's why I'll defend thrash metal. A lot of people are like, it's not it's like music for edgy kids, and I'm like, yeah, no duh. But it's good music for edgy kids. Like it's really tasteful. It's the same thing. Like people shit on animation a lot, like children's animation, without realizing like how much harder it is to make a show for kids than you would ever think. Because they have such brutal taste. You know, if a riff doesn't go crazy hard, they'll shut it off. They don't give a fuck about your message. like unless the solos are something that blows their mind, they will not stick around for the rest of the song. And
Yeah, that's
you,
true. Like kids are hard to impress for some reason. Like,
they're like both easy and hard to impress at the same time. And there's such an art to like having them come back to it. Like going back to a very intense, edgy, dark album. You really gotta know what the fuck you're doing. Because even if like I listen to it, I'm like, wow, that was an experience. There's very few things that like will get me to be like, but I need to listen to it again. Yeah.
yeah.
And that's why I listen to this record way more than any Slayer record. I love Slayer. I think Slayer is fantastic. I will even say that I think that the drummer for Slayer is better than this drummer. But and even though they're doing everything like really fucking well, there's like certain like small, I guess, fun factor that like I'm missing, like B movie factor that I'm missing. That I'm like, yes, but does it establish a vibe?
Yeah, the B movie factor is really what like I guess it comes to we were talking about in the beginning where it's like how seriously does it take it? I think this album is the perfect blend.
Yes.
Because like Holy War's Punishment and Do and Rest in Peace, the last two songs, are pretty serious. But even in that song, like the Holy Wars is pretty dark and about like a real thing that's still happening today.
Mhm.
And then The Punishment Due is like the Punisher is fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Here's my Punisher bumper sticker on my Ford F-150. I fucking love that comic. It's so raw. It's just both of them.
Oh, but okay, even going into Holy Wars, um, like there's some lyrics that are genius because of the satirical content. Like saying my puppet might be holier than thou. That's an objectively funny line. I think that's actually like really spot on. But he's talking about something serious and being spot on. And yeah, it's like little things like that. You got to drop little like nuggets like that, or else the album feels like a slosh going through. Of like, I'm just gonna feel awful the entire time listening to this, even though it's fantastic.
I can't.
Yeah.
I hate albums that are awful the whole way. Like I can't, because it's just like I know what I'm experiencing. I think a big thing for any album experience is I like the variety of different kind of sounds and different messages and different tones in an album.
Mm-hmm.
If it's one thing, I get so bored.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a big reason why I like this album compared to maybe other metal, because other metal to me is just like a death, damnation, hell, crazy shit.
Yeah, that's why I don't like most metal either. I don't even like most thrash. I'll defend thrash, but I'll still be like the vast majority of it with any extreme music, 90% of it, complete garbage, cringeworthy garbage. Yeah, no, and so like to be able to balance it out, major props. It's got to have. Well, there's the variety thing. I definitely see even more when it's like riff oriented, because that's also something else. There might be people that can come up with like really fun and interesting song structures and lyrics, but their riffs all sound the same, and that's such a big problem. But like when you're playing super fast and you need to sound evil, there's only so many ways to do it without getting super creative. Also, by the way, I want to point this out. This has nothing to do with my tangent, but have you ever noticed 5 Magics? The entirety of the song is in various different types of 5/4. The entire song is in 5. Oh, hold up.
That's where I was feeling the jazz.
Yeah, because that like slow climb, and also even like the speed up too.
Yeah.
Give me sorcery, and then the beat, and then even once it does speed up, like it's honestly, I think that's crazy. I think that's genius. Listening to that shit every single time, I'm like, how do they do it?
It's still kind of a goofy song about
wizards,
fantasy book, wizards and shit.
Wizards and shit, but like it melts my face off, so it doesn't matter. What else? So yeah, no. Actually, do you have any other questions about the album?
If you like this album, what else would you like?
You would definitely like well, the first 2 Metallica albums, as we have established right now, because they're also written by Dave Mustaine. I would recommend Euthanasia by Megadeth, or Peace Sells. Peace Sells is more traditional thrash. Euthanasia is much more Dave Mustaine doing his thing. There's counted to distinction between Euthanasia and Rest in Peace. A lot of people like this record. I don't like this record. I feel, I think that a lot of it is like almost responding to the Black Album, but not quite. And I think there's and also the guitar playing is not nearly as crazy as the other records. Like it slows things down. It focuses more on lyrics and vocals. And while I think those elements are great on this album, I don't think they should be the focus of Megadeth ever. I just well maybe not never, but just like it takes a step back. It doesn't really add too much. It mostly takes away. So I wouldn't. Yeah.
And I feel like that's what like all metal was kind of trying to do, was take away more, and then add in like acoustics, and go less thrash. You know what I mean?
Go less thrash. I think Metallica. The big thing that Metallica really pushed in music. First of all, it started. It really like put on the map the speed. The speed war. The band slowly building up speed, and then
Well, go ahead.
No. The minute they left that game, like no, the minute they couldn't compete. Why? Because there's Slayer, there's Megadeth, there's the band called Death, there's death metal as a genre, there's technical thrash as a genre, and they're like, okay, well, we no longer can play that game. Let's go to the alternative rock, the alternative metal game, which wasn't really established because this is pre Nirvana. Yeah. And from there, they're also thinking like, okay, instead of like a super crazy riff technique wise, it's a super crazy riff texture wise, and that's how you get bands like Deftones, bands like Gojira, that are not any faster than Metallica or any more edgy than Metallica, but they sound way different. They still sound brutal. They still sound heavy. They still sound well, like metal, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Where would you put God, what's the name of the band? Songs for the Deaf. What's the band called?
Oh, Queens of the Stone Age.
Queens of the Stone Age. Where would you put, like, were they influenced by this? Because when you said that, the textural differences, it reminded me of Queens of the Stone Age.
Oh yeah, I think so too. But okay, saying like a rock band, a heavier rock band is influenced by thrash metal in the early 90s is like, I don't know. It's like how it's like if I make pop hip hop now, it's like I'm gonna be influenced by at some level by Kanye and by Kid Cudi. It just is. Yeah. And so in that scene, yes. Although that's a story for another time. You see, the way Queens of the Stone Age came about was from this separation. So Metallica is pushing this like speed and edginess race in the forefront and the mainstream, and that's how most people perceive metal. And then behind the scenes, there's quite a few bands that reject that. It's like, no, we're gonna go slower, we're gonna go heavier.
Yeah.
Keep in mind, all of this is happening in 80s California. So in 80s California, you got the evolution of thrash metal, the evolution of hardcore punk, and the evolution of doom metal past the traditional doom metal. And then Queens of the Stone Age came out. Caius came out of the North Palm scene. So if you actually look at a map of California, it's like the speediest bands are coming in from the south, and then as you go more and more north, they're slowing down. They're like sledging it out, and then you get to North Palm scene, and it's mostly guys who listen to Saint Vitus, Black Sabbath, Candlemass, and those sorts of bands. And if they do add speed, if they do add aggression, it's way more influenced by punk bands than it is by thrash metal. And I think most of those guys from that scene, including who's the dude from Queens of the Stone Age? Oh man, this is killing me.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about, the main guy.
Yeah. Josh Homme. Yeah, Josh Homme hates thrash metal. He hates most metal, actually. And this is something that a lot of people got wrong in interviews with him, and why he would get super pissed off when people, just by people going up to him being like, "We're from Metal Magazine, and we're wondering what albums you listen to." He's like, "Fuck off." And it wasn't until Nardwuar showed up being like, "I know you like punk and you hate metal," that was the first interview you opened up, be like, you know your shit.
Damn.
Good on you.
Nardwuar on that CIA level investigative journalism.
Yeah, because he pulled out like an EP that was like in Josh Holmes' collection, that was from a punk band that only sold like 200 copies, and that's like when Josh Holmes, like, you can tell in the interview, before the interview starts, he's already like, "I want to leave, I want to get the fuck out of here." He mentions that EP, and like he locks in with Nardwuar, bro. He's like, whoa. And he and you can tell he enjoyed that interview because Nardwuar didn't ask about metal once. He talked about polka and punk.
Oh, okay.
That being said, now to bring up Josh Homme and Dave Mustaine are like same wavelengths of like,
yeah.
It's just firecracker band leader.
Yeah, we'll do the Queens of the Stone Age episode.
Yeah.
Sure, I know you'll want to do that.
Yeah, and even more so, they also have they're like changing they're changing members like every single album. This one was unfortunate because you tried to keep this lineup and then like everyone just kind of went off their separate ways. Like the drummer of Rest in Peace, it's a drum tech from the last drummer. That drummer was a drum tech of the last drummer. And
you ever get a new job and then someone tells you, "Oh yeah, the guy who worked your position quit. He walked out of here."
Yeah, that's happened to me multiple times. Actually, that is always like, is never good.
An instant red flag.
Instant red flag. And then Marty Freeman, he kind of wanted to do his own thing. He has apparently late 90s. He permanently moved to Japan and started doing like not just like metal as we know it, but like symphonic metal, a lot of like J-rock, a lot of like anime OSTs.
What?
Yeah.
Are you saying this guy brought metal to Japan?
He may have.
He's a visionary.
There's and even more like before that, the way he got known before Megadeth was, so there used to be thrash metal, and then there was just shredding albums, which are albums that were mostly instrumental, and it's just for dudes to show off how good they can shred. And that was like, it wasn't even like super dark imagery. Like you just see like the cover, and it's like a dude with like hair up to here, holding his like neon orange guitar. That's like that can cut you in 5 different places. And the album is just yeah, like the album isn't even like solos and riffs. It's just shredding.
Is it like a dick measuring contest or something?
I think so, because that was part of it. That was like part of like everyone's speeding up and everyone's trying to be like the best shredder ever. And so there became a bunch of guys who were known just for being good shredders. One of them was Marty Freeman, and Dave Mustaine took a note from the Metallica playbook, and they even auditioned him. Like Marty just wrote to him like, "Bro, I want to be in your band." And he's like, "Oh, come on through." I want to be in your band. This is my record. And like he pretty much, according to Dave, he just put in for one song. He's like, "This guy's joining us." I can't believe this guy's joining us.
It was so easy back then.
Yeah.
Send a letter.
Well, the way Dave Mustaine joined Metallica was through an advert on the newspaper.
Yeah, it was the same. That's the same way Jim Morrison joined the Doors.
That's how they do things in California, bro.
It was just like, "Hey, you want to be in a band? Boom, there you go."
There you go. You're in a band. You're in one of the most successful bands of all time now.
Congratulations.
Yes.
But yeah. Any closing thoughts?
Don't trust the government. Don't ever in your life trust the government, and always be a positive message for the kids. My positive message to the kids is don't trust the government.
Yeah. I guess I can tie up the two albums together. We have two albums, completely different genres. They're more alike than you think, and they're both from America. Just shows the diversity of America.
It shows the diversity in the positive message.
Different ways you can send a positive message to people through music.
Yes.
God bless America.
God bless
America. For anyone who has no idea what's on Lewis's head, he is wearing tinfoil to protect himself from the government.
Yeah, because God knows the government is trying to invade my headspace.
Not while we're doing this podcast.
No, God no. Or else I'm gonna spew. No, like I'm gonna like listen. Hold up, watch this. Israel is our greatest ally. Like you see what I'm talking about? Like like come on. Like voting matters and everything, but you see, this is crazy. This is why I can't not have this.
There you go.
Yes.
So, yeah. Anything else, Lewis?
No. But I hope you all have a beautiful day.
I hope you have a wonderful holidays. This will probably be coming out after holidays. So I hope you had a wonderful holiday.
Yeah.
Like the video, like it, show it to your friends. And remember, don't trust the government.
Don't trust the government.
Broward Exchange out.